This is the Global Podcast Network, where executives and professionals connect, share, and inspire. Stay tuned for the conversations that drive success.
It is something that can challenge us from time to time, but many of us don't know a lot about it. Lymphedema. We're going to learn about that today, all connected to the lymphatic system. And I'm going to call her our resident expert on that system because she and her team provide massage for that and also massage therapy for other challenges. Great to have her back with us. Ann Boone is on the program. How are you today?
I'm great, Steve. I'm so happy to be here with you.
Same. And we touched upon lymphedema in the past, very briefly, as we talked about the lymphatic system in our bodies. And you just had some major training when it comes to lymphedema. Tell us about that.
So I'd like to call it lymphedema boot camp. So it was 135-hour training. 45 hours of that was online. 90 hours was in person. So I went to beautiful downtown Monroe, North Carolina, which is about 25 minutes from Charlotte. And it was a 10-hour-a-day training. And we had two different instructors, mostly physical therapists and occupational therapists, one other massage therapist, which is what my primary licensing is. And these are people who are wanting to learn how to treat specific pathologies of the lymph system, in particular lymphedema. And to sort of recap what that is, it's a pathology or a problem with the lymph system when it puts out too much protein into the system from the vascular system, from the arterial and venous side of the system. So we take in nutrients, they go through our stomach, we digest them, they go into our bloodstream. The bloodstream starts to push out things we don't need. That goes into the lymphatic system. There's ultrafiltration that pushes all that out. There's some reabsorption. Although I'm waiting on somebody to send me a new study about how they don't believe there's as much resorption with the from the venous system. That's a whole nother podcast. But so it goes into the lymphatic system, and with a normal, healthy lymphatic system, this is all taken up, sent to the lymph nodes. Waste products are removed. Cancer, viruses, molds, all that type of thing are sort of looked at by the lymph nodes. They put out white blood cells, kind of take care of all that. Everything goes back to the vascular system from the top of our clavicles here. And then the vascular system sends it through the kidneys and liver, and most of it we urinate out or we pee out. So in an unhealthy, so that's when everything's working good. When everything is not working so well, we may have, we talked about before, lymphedema, edema, and lipedema. And today we're going to talk about lymphedema. And often there are two different types, as I think I described last time. There's primary, and that's when somebody is born with a faulty lymphatic system, typically shows up in puberty or not too long after birth. And then there's secondary lymphedema, which is secondary to either lymph nodes being removed, areas being radiated, which is very common with breast cancer, or there's been a trauma. Sometimes you can have malignant lymphedema, which causes the lymph system to back up. So those are some of the reasons that somebody might have an unhealthy lymph system.
Wow. Isn't it amazing what our bodies do for us? But we take it so much for granted. You eat stuff, you eat garbage, you're like, my stomach will take care of it, all that. And we don't realize that your body's probably in distress. Your lymphatic system's probably screaming for help as it tries to purge all this waste. I don't want to say toxins. It can be from time to time. Right. Yeah.
They talk a lot about toxins in this, but it's, that term is very overused, and you and I have talked about that, but yes.
Yeah.
But yeah. Some of the first signs you might see when your body's just trying to kind of tell you, hey, hey, Steve, hey, Ann, I'm having a problem here. And you can start to have some swollen ankles. Usually lymphedema starts at the distal end of our body, so either hands, forearms, or legs and feet. If you have a form of malignant lymphedema, it most always starts proximally, so closer to the body. So as a trained lymphedema therapist, so now I have the initials of complete lymphedema therapist, so CLT, and we learn complete decongestive therapy. And so with somebody like that, we might have a different course of action. But most of the people that I see that have lymphedema have had breast cancer, and they've had nodes removed, and they've had radiation. And so there's a very specific protocol based on what stage they're at. And we talked about that one of the last times. So the minute you have a node removed, even just one, you're considered stage 0 lymphedema. You
Wow.
may never go beyond that. You may never progress beyond that. Stage 1, we're starting to notice some pitting. So you may notice if you push in on the skin, it stays there for a little bit and it slowly comes back out. Your ankles, we see this on the ankles. So we're kind of testing things. And with stage 2, we start to see some what we call fibrosis. So you start to see where you push and there's no pitting. The skin feels very, not very pliable. And stage 3, we start getting into even more issues. Stage 3 and beyond, we start to see some elephantiasis, which you see with these people who have these large lobules on their legs. And, this is very life-changing. And in very rare instances, people can develop malignant lymphedema from letting the system go that long. So,
Wow.
yeah.
I'm surprised the stage 0 with a node removed because we've got many in our body. We don't have as many large ones, but are we talking like, let's say, breast cancer situation, there might be a node here or under the arm or nearby. Of course, we have the two. And actually, I'm very transparent. I had radiation for skin cancer right here 3 years ago. And I don't think
Did you have any lymph nodes removed? Or?
I did not. No.
Radiation. So that leaves you more susceptible to swelling. That tissue is going to be a lot more fragile in general, especially right after the radiation.
Oh, yeah.
But these are areas that, it doesn't hurt to do some self-lymphatic drainage. And there's a thing called the Big Six that I went over very briefly in one of the other podcasts. But so they consider it stage 0. So you have about 40 to 60 or more lymph nodes under each arm. In your groin, you have less, only about 8 to 10. So when they take out one lymph node, the reason they call it stage 0 is you are now prone to developing lymphedema. So you could have one lymph node taken out, or I have one client who's had almost all of them taken out because she had a very aggressive form of cancer, along with part of the muscle on that side. So what that requires when somebody starts to progress beyond stage 0, in this particular class, I learned compression bandaging. So there are foam, a very specific way to wrap the limb, whether it's a leg or an arm, because you want a specific gradient of pressure. So, people wear compression socks, and you want to have more compression at the bottom and less at the top. So it pushes everything up. So if it's too, you see sometimes people wear like half socks and they'll have an impression and everything above that swollen.
Yes.
So that's an example of that. So we want to make sure that with people who are developing lymphedema rather, or if they're in the pretty, stage 2, stage 3, they will need to be bandaged 23 hours a day, 7 days a week, or 5 days if they can't get 7 days. And for weeks or possibly up to a month or more until you get that managed. And once that's managed, so that means they're coming to the therapist every day for 5 to 7 days. And so then once you get that managed, they can order either what they call off the shelf flat knit garments, or they can get custom garments, which is preferable. So once you get that swelling down, those bandages are pretty bulky on your arm, but it's necessary you want to get those nodes and everything working and rerouted the way that we incorporate manual lymphatic drainage first. And then we put the bandages on right away so that everything keeps moving the way we want it to. You have lymphatic drainage and you have lymphedema and you leave without some kind of compression, things are starting to already fill up when you leave.
Wow.
Yeah.
So what if you don't have major symptoms, but you wear socks, and I kind of love it when the top band of the sock, keeps my socks up. I'm like, all right, well, that's great. But then at night, end of the day, I'll take the sock off, and I just have that indentation, and there's a little bit of, it's a little bit more volume above it, which I think is kind of normal. But is that a bad thing if you're wearing those socks that grab your leg tight at the top?
It just depends on what's going on with your particular body. I wear compression socks, and they have a pretty wide band at the top, and they're
Okay.
specific to for lymphatic flow and things like that. Mine are more for a vascular issue, so they call it chronic vascular insufficiency. So I mentioned before that a horse flipped over on me, and my patella was on the outside of my knee, so
Yeesh.
the blood flow stopped for a little bit. So I wear those just to keep things going in that respect. With lymphedema, and for just somebody who notices that, you want to make sure you have a wider band at the top, and that they're not tighter at the bottom tighter at the top than they are at the bottom if you have any issues with swelling.
If you don't really have issues with swelling, but your socks are causing that, and what
It
is
happens.
is you shouldn't be alarmed.
No harm, no foul. Yeah, no, but always looking at these things with your own body. Are you waking up in the morning? So many of us, it can be dietary, as far as a lot of sodium that we talked about before. You do want to make sure you're getting proper electrolytes, but we can have some swelling in places, and it doesn't mean that we have a pathology. But if you start to wake up and you notice your face is very puffy, your hands are puffy, your legs are puffy, it may not be lymphedema, it may be some vascular issues, and those are some things to get checked out. Lymphedema typically affects one limb. It doesn't usually affect the whole body. So it's usually from maybe a trauma to a limb, radiation, lymph nodes being removed, that type of thing. So when you have that, the flat net I was talking about that you will wear after you have the bandages and you have all that therapy completed, you do need to wear the flat net, especially if you fly, if you exercise, because what those things do, the bandaging, they call it short stretch bandaging. So you wouldn't use an ACE bandage to go around these bandages. They don't stretch very much. And what they do is within the cylinder of that bandage, they create a low resting pressure and a high working pressure. So when you have an ACE bandage on, it's a high resting pressure because it's tight all the time. The bandaging and the flat net garments, when you're resting, they're not putting any pressure on your limb. But when you start working out, your muscles push out against this bandaging or or the garment, and it helps lymph to flow back up. So when people have lymphedema, it's super important that they wear something when they're exercising and or when they're traveling, and especially if they're at any kind of height, if they're at elevation.
Now, you say it affects one limb. Do you mean, like, let's say your legs, it's going to affect both legs, or can it just affect one?
Usually with lymphedema, it just affects one limb.
Wow.
Because it's usually a result of an injury, again, lymph nodes being removed, prostate cancer, sometimes they're pelvic cancers. People have lymph nodes removed from their groin, which affects the leg. So typically, we call that it's unilateral. Typically, it's unilateral. So as a lymphedema therapist, we want to make sure that we don't stimulate the area that has the lymph nodes removed. But what we're going to do, so for example, if I had lymph nodes removed from my left arm, my left axilla, my left armpit, I'm going to want to create a vacuum over to these nodes that are good. Anything connected with that. So the nodes on the side where the lymph nodes are working, and I'm going to go down. So we almost create what we call it a superstar, because it looks like a superstar. You're going out from those nodes, and I'm going to go over to the opposite side armpit, and then the same side inguinal area. And I'm going to open up all those areas. And almost like the analogy I've used before, if I want to go an hour north of where I live, I want to clear the highway first and then push the cars up. So I'm going to open up these lymph nodes on the same side groin and the opposite side arm for an arm affected. Open all those up, move everything over, and then and only then will I work on this limb, but I will not work in this armpit. I'm going to work to reroute everything back to a different way of being so that it starts to form different lymph collectors and trunks and all that good stuff. So we call that lymphoangiogenesis. So it starts to create a different pathway.
And how do you know that the path that you choose, let's say you know that the right arm is compromised. How do you know that you should push it to the left, that we're going to be good over there, that there's a good path, a good road open for you?
That's a good question, Steve. I would say, as long as the person has not had nodes removed on the other side, because sometimes you do have nodes removed on both sides.
Sure.
So sometimes you've got to move just to the, you will move a little bit over to that path, but you may only move down to the groin. So I have to know their particular medical history and surgical history. And then from there, I just know that these have not had surgery, trauma, anything like that. So then I know the pathways and what we call the watersheds and things like that. And I know which way on most bodies that things will go to reroute to a particular area.
Wow. I guess it takes experience too. You might not know if one was removed there, but I'm guessing you probably could feel.
Not necessarily, but you usually will see a scar, an incision, and the person should know because they've had surgery to remove a node, and they don't just remove nodes for no reason.
Sure.
So if somebody's had cancer is the most common reason why somebody has lymph nodes removed. So they would know, and they would be, if they were coming to me for lymphedema issues, they would know that, and I would have that in their medical history.
So can we go to some questions from listeners?
Sure.
Instant feedback, Steve@gmail.com. You can reach us. And, let's pull up one here. All right. We have Brian in Johnson City, Tennessee. And he says, I appreciate your conversation. Is it normal to need to use the bathroom more after a lymphatic drainage massage?
Hopefully, absolutely, because we're moving fluid, as I mentioned before. What was his name, Brian?
Yes.
Brian. So Brian, we're moving that fluid and it comes back up to above the clavicles here, with what we call the venous angles and the thoracic duct, which is on the left side. So 25% of everything's drained on the right side, 75% of everything's drained on the left side. And so everything goes back to the vascular system and gets flushed out through the kidneys. And that's what we want to see. If I do lymphatic drainage on somebody who's well hydrated and they are not urinating that out, then we have another problem. Then maybe there's some renal failure, which is somebody I would not work on, somebody who has renal issues that are not well managed. So then if somebody tells me, I feel worse and worse after the treatments and I'm not urinating, then we have an issue and I'm going to send them back to their doctor or to a specialist.
Got Danielle, Chapel Hill, North Carolina. Did you say you were in North Carolina?
I'm in Kentucky.
But you were there for that training, though.
Oh, yeah. I was in Monroe, North Carolina. Absolutely.
Well, funny.
So, and I can refer people to people in the class. So if anybody needs somebody in a different area, they can contact me.
Cool. She says, can exercise help move lymph fluid through the body the same way massage does?
So if you have motion is lotion, that's important for any system in the body. It depends on what you have going on with your body. As we spoke before, I talked about lipedema. You don't want to do any high intensity interval training with that. If you have lymphedema, you need to have the manual lymphatic drainage, because if you're not opening up those nodes and rerouting things, and then you're getting on a vibration plate or you're exercising, and again, exercising without the compression, it can make things worse. And especially if you're getting very hot, because the lymph system will react to heat.
One more, and this is from, let me just scroll down here just a little bit. Ocala, Florida. Tom checks in at instantfeedbacksteve@gmail.com and says, are there certain areas of the body where lymphatic drainage is more important?
Well, most of your lymph nodes are in your head, your neck, and your abdomen. So without opening up the abdomen, it doesn't matter where you have lymph issues. And you can do that just by diaphragmatic breathing, just by deep breathing. So sometimes people have pathologies in their abdomen and I can't do the deeper work on them and they can just breathe. So I'd say the abdomen, if you had to pick one place, would be do some deep breathing every day.
Wow. Even deep breathing can move the fluid?
Yes. Yeah, because where the diaphragm's moving down and it's compressing the abdomen and the abdomen's going out, it's making more space in your thoracic area for your heart and your lungs. So even if somebody is so fragile or they have had a lot of abdominal surgeries or there's some reason you cannot press on their abdomen, because there are some very deep techniques I do there.
Sure.
Yeah.
Didn't even think of that. And yeah, based on what you're saying, it sounds like we should be just even you're sitting around watching TV, do a little bit of massage to try and move things around the neck area and up
You
around
can
the
look
face.
up the big six. So if you look up the big six for lymphatic drainage. So 1, 2, 3, down in your inguinal area, abdomen, and behind your knees. If you look that up, there are usually videos that will show you how to do that. And it is a good thing to do on a daily basis.
Do you do that? Like if you're just sitting there watching TV, like you don't even know you're doing it?
I do it every day, just about. Yeah, at least once a day.
If you get in the mode of doing that, have you noticed benefits yourself? You feel different?
Absolutely. And as I mentioned, I have a leg that tend to have a little bit of swelling in. So I do notice that I feel a little bit more awake, especially if I've had kind of a hard night and not slept well. I'll do all of this and just the movement. I'll even do things like you can even do things like putting your shoulders up and down like this. They call it the lymph shuffle. So that'll help to stimulate these areas. So if all you do is that and deep breathing every day, that's going to move lymph.
Yeah, just I can imagine somebody walking in while you're jumping around all over the place. But
people look at me really weird in airports for sure.
Yeah, well, you feel better. Who cares what they think? What's the best way for somebody to reach you, Ann, if they have questions or they need to be around the Lexington, Kentucky area for actual hands-on massage? But you said you could refer people too, right?
I can refer people too. I have people come from, as much as an hour away. So my website is boonemassagetherapy.com. And that's where they can also submit a submission to contact me. You can also reach me at 859-209-9005. So it's 859-209-9005 or boonemassagetherapy.com.
Learn so much today. And thank you for that. And also, I love you're like the lymphatic go-to person here. The fact that you even continue your education on this speaks volumes for your passion, and I appreciate it. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, Steve.
This is the Global Podcast Network, where executives and professionals connect, share, and inspire. Stay tuned for the conversations that drive success.